Hey everyone, Tactics here, back from BlizzCon and just in time too, because we've got a new season dropping in just a few days. So that means that we need some new dungeon routes. In particular, the routes that I'm going to be showing off in this video are going to be simple, easy to execute, making them extremely PUG friendly and great starter routes for when the season kicks off. I've avoided things like difficult skips or extremely large pulls that require a lot of coordination, though feel free to kind of adjust these routes and add those things in as you deem necessary as you get more comfortable with the dungeons. Note that I won't be going super in depth into the mob or boss abilities in this video in particular, just quickly kind of running through the routes themselves. But if you do want a more detailed information version of each dungeon, you can check out my guides over on my channel. I have all 8 Season 3 guides already available, so check it out. Also linked in the description below. I've also partnered with Method this tier actually to bring you guys written guides for every single dungeon as well. So if that's more your speed, feel free to check those out. Again, linked in the description below. Finally, my trash ability spreadsheet is also a resource available absolutely free for you guys to use in the description below. And it just kind of shows off every single trash mob in the entire season, all their abilities, and then kind of sorts them into various categories like interrupts, dispels, stops, those kinds of things. So check that out as well. Pretty handy if I do say so myself. Now, I've talked a lot already, so let's get started with the routes. And let's begin with the reworked Throne of the Tides dungeon from Cataclysm. So this dungeon is pretty W key. As you can tell, we've pulled almost every single trash mob in the entire dungeon here. I always like to start with a decently big pull right off the top. You've got cooldowns available. Usually you'll have Bloodlust as well. Maybe you don't want to Bloodlust initially, but this is a dungeon you will Bloodlust. And then you can kind of move forward as necessary. Feel free to chain these two together, for example. And note that these packs here, number 11 and 15, aren't there when you initially start the dungeon. They don't spawn until you've killed the second boss. Moving forward, you've got the teleporter here that'll launch you upstairs to this little gauntlet area, which is no longer gauntlet actually. It's just one wave of murlocs that get spawned at you. I recommend moving on top of these two casters here and then tapping these mobs to bring them on top of the casters. Just groups it up way easier. If you want though, you can delay pulling these sentinels as they do have a fair bit of tank damage. Moving forward here, there is one difficult part about this pack, and that's this patrol here. This Ravager, if you don't have kind of a combat reduction radius, like a sap, an imprison, or a mind soothe to apply to these mobs here, it can be finicky to pull. So you can either wait and pull it with pack 6, or you can either pull it on this part of the patrol or over here on this part of the patrol. If you pull it when it's relatively close to this pack here, it can aggro that pack as well, so be aware of that. Otherwise, this patrols across the room here, and it doesn't matter if you pull it with this bottom pack or this top pack. Either way, exactly the same. Moving through here, one more pull, and then you have the first boss. Then you move back and you immediately have the second boss. Something to note is that because you have to fight the second boss in this room, you can opt to just kill this 3-pack here. You obviously don't need it for count, but just for safety, it could be a good idea. And then you'll end up killing the boss in this room, make your way through a little electric gauntlet on the way back down, and head towards the third boss this way. Again, you do have to go right in the reworked version. You can't skip that boss, obviously, anymore. You do have to go down here, and you're just pulling packs here. This guy can sometimes patrol into this pack, but it's not a big deal. Just pull them together. You can also technically do this in 2 pulls instead of 3. Keep that in mind, and you don't necessarily need to pull this onto the boss either. It doesn't matter. Then you do the boss, and then you're running all the way back here, and then you have yet another gauntlet. Know the gauntlet itself doesn't actually start until you move just past pack 16, so you can actually pull this pack without touching the gauntlet or starting the gauntlet up yet, so keep that in mind as well. And be very careful. These Tainted Sentries, their ability, their swell is no longer purgeable. It was on the PTR, it no longer is. So this is just damage you're going to have to heal through, which can be very scary with this wave of corruption kind of stacking up on the entire party when you kill these small adds, so be aware of that. I think my guess is you're going to see a lot of higher groups skip this hallway if possible, maybe trying to pull mobs like here and here and here, all these extra mobs, and maybe skipping something kind of in the middle here in this kind of area, just to prevent having to play this sentry in the middle of this gauntlet. But obviously that's something we'll have to see in the future. Haven't seen a ton of testing obviously with the changes to these mobs yet, so gonna have to wait and see. But initially, this is going to be the easiest thing I think to deal with, just kind of W keying through this area. And then you have the final boss, that is Throne of the Tides. Let's move up here, Darkheart Thicket. Now, I did have to include a skip in Darkheart Thicket. I will cover that in a second, but I think it makes the dungeon drastically easier. So starting off, nice big pull. Beware these cats. If you're a ranged player, probably pop a defensive as you're grouping this pack because it's quite scary. Again, this is a Bloodlust, and this is a all cooldowns pull, so do that. Moving forward, pack right here. Just be careful not to shoot these razor beaks into any of these trash bowls. Then you jump through. There's like a little skip here. If you want to check out the Darkheart guide video, I actually walk you through these skips at the end of the video in the root portion of that video, and I show you how, like, where exactly these skips are. So check that out if you want to know exact positioning. Jump down, kill this patrol, then make your way here, kill the 4-pack, and then this is where you would do your skip. So notably, it's going to be done with Invis Pots, it's going to be done with Shroud, or you can actually be done with a Warlock Gate. The Warlock Gate, again, I show it in the Darkheart video, but you can gate all the way like over here and then hug down this wall here. And this is out of the aggro radius of the Grizzlies, so you only need to Invis Pass and hug here. And this triggers the RP, and the gate eventually disappears. You can fight the boss. Moving forward here, mainly just trying to avoid pulling too many of these Dryads at once. They can be quite annoying if you don't have a DK in your group to keep them kind of in the pack. In this pack, I'd recommend probably focusing down the Dryad with the Keeper just initially before chaining into the next Dryad kind of deal. It's similar to your heal in this pack here. Just focus down these Keepers here, and this is a patrol, so it might be near here where you can easily group it up with the pack, but it might be in an absolutely terrible patrol, and you might have to end up pulling it with this pack 9 over here. Keep that in mind. Tree boss, and then we're just kind of going through here. Nothing too crazy to say except for here, these slimes, they do damage on death, so what I recommend doing is killing this first pack and then chaining with the Blood Tainted Fury into the second pack. Don't do these all at once because potentially you're just going to murder your entire group that way. Moving forward, you've got the actual boss jumping down, and then do these packs kind of individually as you see fit. Again, this pack is only separated because it's relatively hard to actually group up because the imps and the summoner are spam casters. Not actually terribly scary if you are able to group these up though, so potentially combine those if you can. This pack, exceptionally scary. So Dark Soul Bite applies this disease dot on the tank, which will stack up, so 4 of these can apply 4 of these dots. Very, very scary. You will need a disease spell, maybe 2, to pull this pack here. It's just exceptionally scary. Tanks, you may want to be ready to kite this pull, be ready to, big defensive at the start of this pull initially to help with those initial bites, and potentially kite later on, or something you can do if you don't want to do a skip here, you can potentially just skip this pack as well and maybe pull these bears or something like that. But I do think the double bear pack in general is probably more difficult and going to result in more deaths than these bats, but just be aware of these bats. They are exceptionally dangerous. Maybe the most dangerous tank mob in the dungeon pool currently, which is kind of wild. Anyways, moving forward, one more pack. Again, notably, there is one bat in this pack as well. Tanks, be aware of it. And then you go to the last boss. Okay, that is Darkheart. Let's move on. We've got the Everbloom. So this dungeon received some count changes. This is the updated guide, or updated route rather. The guide video has the previous route edition because they updated the count literally this weekend. So this is with the updated count. Move in, start here. Just a big pull off the top again. Cooldowns, Bloodlust, you guys get the deal. Pulling one of these Berserkers in, so range, be aware of the jumps. And one of these Stingers as well. Poison spells, very good in this dungeon. Then you're going to be hugging the wall here. I got one pull here. Watch, this is a double stinger pull. Keep that in mind. You're going to be hugging this wall here. You should be able to walk past a Gnarl Root here. He's either going to be around this spot in your pat if you were fast, or you're going to be walking this way towards the end of his pat if you were a little slow. Either way, just pull this pack of flowers around him so you don't pull him into this pack in the corner here. Just again, be wary of this mini boss patrol, and from there you can start to move into this area. Notably, this 2-pack here patrols around in an arc, so add them onto any 3-pack that they actually are patrolling into. It doesn't necessarily have to be this one, just kind of wherever they are in their patrol. Got the boss, remember to pull him away from the water, take him over here. When the boss is dead, you can move up this path towards the second boss. Got a couple nice size pulls here, and the other thing to note, pull size here is kind of inflated because of these flowers. They make them look very, very big. All these flowers do is like tank stuff, so it's not actually too scary, and they're relatively low health as well. Big decent pull here with an Abomination and Berserkers, so do that pull here. Hugging the right side of this area, again, similar pull, you're going to have a couple double berserkers here. Range, be careful with those jump outs, and you can just pull these flowers as well, just a range kick. Potentially don't even need a kick. This guy might just walk in on his own, so keep that in mind. Then you pull into this corner. Again, this is a patrol here, so depending on where it is in the patrol, you may add it early or late in the pack, so be aware of that. You do not want to add this patrol with pack 11 here. You really want it in pack 10 because there's already another Twisted Abomination, and these guys do a decent amount of party damage with Noxious Eruption, so be aware of that. Then you have the second boss here, and then you're moving up into the third boss area. Note that I've separated each of these pulls here. Depending on your number of kicks, you can pull 2 of these at once, for example. It's just these Lieutenant mobs, the Pyromancer, Ice Caller, and Arcanomancer need to be kicked, otherwise people will begin to die, especially on fortified weeks, particularly the Pyromancer, so that's why I've kind of separated them. But if you are comfortable with your kicks, if you have a lot of kicks, feel free to pull 2 of these at a time. Notably, you will have to pull 3 of these at one time just before the boss fight here. I recommend focusing down the Pyromancer, keeping the Pyromancer 100% kicked, and then putting spare kicks into like the Arcanomancer or the Ice Caller. Either works, but 100% kick rate on the Pyromancer because their ability hits the hardest. And then before you actually do the boss, just make sure you clear the space on both sides of the assistants, just so you actually have room to fight the boss, and then you just go boss into boss at the end of the dungeon. Moving forward, Atal'Dazar. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a zigzag route here. So I think right off the top, this trash on the troll side is actually quite punishing. I think it's going to be very, very scary for a lot of pug groups, just in terms of how you handle it, how you have to tank it. That's probably going to be a bit of a a special spot you have to stand in, that kind of thing. It's going to be hard to group up, etc. High-end groups probably going to pull this whole area here or close to it. I'm not recommending you do that. Small pull at the top here. Again, you have cooldowns. Maybe lust, maybe not. Might lust this on Fort Week, probably not on Tyrant, because you're going to jump down the side here immediately after. Pull these 2 guys onto boss. They have 1 kick or stop each in Terrifying Screech. Very easy for even one person to solo them, which is why I'm asking you to pull them on a boss. Feel free to not do that though, but you will need to be aware of Murozond's patrol. This is kind of calculated so that no matter how fast you do this pull, whether you're a little fast or a little slow, when you jump down here, Murozond is going to be in kind of this quadrant of the map, ideally, just based on how his patrol works on the start of the dungeon. So ideally, you jump down, grab these guys, and Murozond is just kind of in your area, and you can easily pull him. After that, you're running back up this way. Just hug the right wall here. Be aware someone might pull this, but usually you can hug the wall and avoid it entirely. And then you run up this way. Be aware of the stealth mob. Pull this 2-pack in whenever they actually patrol into you. Remember to get those totems. And then you hug the left side of the wall here. Again, watching the stealth mob, ranged healers, maybe you run into the corner here instead of chilling in this area, just because the stealth mob could sneak up on you. And ideally, you do want it to get broken out before it actually ambushes anyone, so keep that in mind. Moving forward here, same deal, 2 stealth mobs. Definitely recommend having like your tank jump down onto the stairs, use AoE abilities or whatever to try and break these guys out before pulling this pack here, just so you don't get instantly stunned in the middle of the pull. Then you got boss. Make your way down through the center of the area. In terms of chain pulling these Saurids, similar to in Darkheart Thicket, you probably want to kill these Saurids before you actually move into the next group, because they do leaps, AoE damage, that kind of thing. Don't be stacked. AoE these guys down, then chain, etc. Walk around, same deal on this side. Kill these guys before you probably move to the next one. And you could even kill these Sky Screamers, maybe if you don't want to have 3 Sky Screamers at once. Then you're making your way up here, up the Fire Gauntlet. Got a couple decent sized pulls here. Then you're dealing with this boss, and then you just immediately run back down this way, deal with the gauntlet, go through the final boss. Atal'Dazar done. We've got Black Rook Hold. So count changes for Black Rook Hold are not new per se from the PTR, but they are different from Legion, if you guys remember that. So basically, Legion time walking changed the count in this dungeon. So keep that in mind. You have to pull a lot more now to hit 100% count. So initially, you're going to have to pull basically everything on the way to the first boss. I opt to go down the right pathway here when you come in, the right pathway, because this mini boss, Lady Valandris Ravencrest rather, is way easier to deal with than the other one. So I recommend going down this way. Pull as you deem fit here. Again, nice big pull with Bloodlust, whatever off the top. If you don't want to do that, do something less. That's fine too. Going through boss here. Then you're going to the spiders. I recommend kind of splitting this up into 2 pulls just to make your life a little bit easier here. So pulling up to the first alcove initially, AoEing them down. Also, if you have a really fast thing, you can have them go up to the first alcove, then jump back down. You want to be careful of those magic dot stacks. Very, very scary. And then after you've done this, then I recommend going up the second alcove and pulling it up to the 2-pack up here. And then you can kind of go through this hallway as you deem fit. Nothing super scary here. Just watch out for the actual archers when they jump away and do their AoE. And then the scouts when they jump away and do knife dance. Make sure you stop both those casts. For pull 8 and 9 here, you can just play around this pillar, LOS them around there. They group up really, really nicely. That's good to know. And then you can just run across, pack 10, Pat, and the boss here at 11. And you make your way up these stairs here, and you are going to end up somewhere. I will find it eventually. I believe it is over here. There it is. You're going to end up over here. These pulls seem big. These tricksters do literally nothing. It's the scavengers you need to be worried about. They will drink potions. You want to delay that drink potion cast as long as you can. Stopping the mob only CCs it. It doesn't actually prevent the cast from actually like recasting. So be aware of that. But you do want to kind of chain stops on these guys. And you're probably going to see people do this hallway in like 1 or 2 pulls maybe. Just because in coordinated groups, you're going to chain those CCs. PUG groups, I've split it up into 3. Keep that in mind. Moving up the stairs again. Another gauntlet here. I'm going to recommend you only do 2 dominators at a time because the sick bats ability is kind of crazy and you need to make sure you keep interrupts on these fell frenzy abilities. So pull this first guy up to here or pull this guy down. Either works. And then go after that all the way through into the boss's room here. This stops the bats from spawning. And then again, you only have 2 dominators in that pull. Then you go boss. Got a few trash pulls to do. Again, you could probably do this in 2 or even 1 pull in coordinated groups, or if you're feeling more comfortable, so keep that in mind. And then you go last boss on the top of the Citadel. Now, what we got left? Waycrest Manor, another dungeon that got count changes this weekend. So the video is a little wrong. I added in a few more things here. Again, the MDT route in the description is up to date. Starting off in the first room, pull all these guys together. You don't even need to lust this, really. I would save lust for the first boss, probably, triad. Then I would go through. The bottom left always is what I'm going to recommend. Got a pull here. You can do these guys, and then as they start getting low, or as you kill off maybe one of these mobs, you can pull like this Rune Weaver into the pack in the corner here, and then go into the boss. Afterwards, go out here, pull all these mobs together. These guys are patrolling around. They go upstairs and then patrol down the stairs and in the hallway here. So just whenever they're here, grab them, but they might not be here initially. Keep that in mind. Then you go out into the actual courtyard. Beware of this patrol. Just make sure you group everything up and beware of the number of kicks that are required of you. Thorn Shapers are pretty hefty, so you definitely don't want to pull more than 2 of these, but even 2 of these at a time might be sketchy, so you might want to actually only pull like these 2 with the patrol, kill the Thorn Shaper, and then just kind of chain around once you've actually killed a Thorn Shaper. Mini boss here as well, keep that in mind. Got the boss, and then for all these pulls over here, I actually recommend you pull them as much as you can outside into the courtyard area, just because your camera angle, your space to deal with things like charges and stuff like that is very limited in these hallways. So having your tank just run in, grab everything, come out, run in, grab everything, come out, run in, grab everything, come out, could save a lot of deaths and things like that, and make it just a bit easier to handle. So keep that in mind. Got the boss here, and then you're making your way downstairs through this stairwell over here, and in this place again. I have these all linked in one pull. It's mostly because you're chaining. Kill this pack with Matron Elma. Matron Elma only needs 1 kick. All your other kicks go into Thorn Shaper. Once this pack is dead, you can just drag Matron Elma over to this pack and do the same thing over there with them. And then you can head downstairs, and this is where it gets a little sketchy because these mobs are very, very close together. You've got a couple of these soul charmers, which are quite scary mobs, along with some other soul essences from the beginning, another caster here. So try and separate these pulls. If you're feeling really, really powerful, you can do all this in one pull, but I'm guessing in PUG groups the number of kicks required is too high, so recommend just splitting this up if you can. Boss, and then these guys all spawn. These guys are much easier to deal with all at once than they were back in BFA because they only jump one at a time. Just make sure you have one person out baiting them when you pull them, and then you run through and you can fight the last boss. There he is over there. Now we get into the fun ones. Dawn of the Infinites. Let's start with the first half, Galakrond's Fall. So this dungeon is pretty rough on count. If you W key through this dungeon, you get like 120% count. So there's basically 2 variations of the route here, depending on if you want to invis pot right at the beginning or near the end. And notably in this dungeon, you do get a new checkpoint after the first boss, so it's not a big deal if you skip at the beginning, assuming you don't wipe instantly. So something to keep in mind. So this is the one where we don't skip at the beginning. Big pull at the top, Bloodlust. Cooldowns makes sense. That's why I prefer this route, because you do that at the beginning. little pull into the first boss, then you're making your way into the actual Manifested Timeways area, where you have to kill all of these packs at the portals, but you do not need to kill these leeches, and these leeches are quite scary. They were meleeing for magic damage on the PTR, and then their cast is also very, very lethal. So if you can just pull these things a little bit more towards the center so you can avoid these leeches entirely, very, very good. Would recommend it. Beware of these patrols here too. It doesn't show it, but this Coalesce Time and this Time Stream Anomaly patrol, and specifically this Time Stream Anomaly, is probably one of the scarier mobs in this dungeon in terms of both tank damage and single target damage onto another player with their bloom debuff. So keep that in mind. Very, very spooky. And then once you kill these mobs, the boss will spawn. Kill the boss, moving into the next area. Over here, I've left this mob in. This is a big scary dragon man. He did get giga nerfed recently, so we'll see how scary they actually are. But also, this is skippable. Here, I put it a Shroud and Distract if you have a rogue, Lockgate as well. Also, anyone who can kind of do a series of jumps and skips like that. If you have a group with enough of those, like a priest and a dragon in your group, they can fade by and they can life grip, dragon can rescue someone, that kind of thing. If you have enough of those, you can skip it as well. But I've left it in the route because that's kind of complicated. But just notably, you can skip that mob, and you probably will likely see most top-end groups skipping that mob, so that's why. Moving forward here, though, you have these dragons here. Notably, these packs, they're together, but they're not actually connected in any way. So you can pull as few of these slimes as you want with a dragon. You can pull these two dragons separately, which I do recommend you do. If you have full defensives and offensive CDs, pull them all together because that saves you some time. But these dragons do a ton of damage with necrotic outbursts, so be aware of that. It's very, very scary. So slowly pull these, chain as you kill a dragon. If you kill a lot of blights and this guy gets a lot of stacks of Relentless Hunger, make sure you soothe it. Same deal with the second dragon pack. Then you have the third boss here, and this is where I have a skip in this route because, again, 120% count if you don't skip this stuff. So I recommend just doing an Invis Pot skip or a Shroud skip here. Pull this last pack on top of this area here to trigger the boss RP and kill it while you're doing the boss RP and the last boss. Alternatively, what you can do instead is you can Invis Pot right at the start of the dungeon here and just do this as your first pull, do boss, and then instead you can pull an extra pack over here, I believe, and there it is. Pull all the packs over here. Obviously not in one pull, just showing you count-wise, and that also works out to 100 and just over 100%. The reason why I prefer the other way is because, again, a nice Lust and CD pull off the top of the run. However, this may be easier to execute in some ways, skip-wise, because you know you have your Invis Pot right when you start the dungeon, whereas sometimes maybe people used a pot or something on the boss and they don't have their Invis Pot for this. So this potentially easier to execute for PUG groups, so keep that in mind. Both options available to you, though. And that brings us to the second half of Dawn of the Infinites, which is a little bit more weird for count. So initially here, you have to kill all 3 mini-bosses to actually spawn the boss, so that's what we do up here. I do this pull after we kill the third mini-boss, but also the mini-boss have a ton of health, so you're likely going to be dragging these mini-bosses around. Like usually we kill this entire pack, then pulled this mini-boss on top of the next mini-boss, etc. So keep that in mind. But basically, their boss has some RP after you kill the third mini-boss, which is why this pull is after the mini-boss. Something to note there. Kill the boss. Got a 2-pack here. It's pretty scary. Got your big gauntlet. You end up here. Another 2-pack. And then you're kind of dealing with this weird gauntlet. So count in this area is not consistent because these temporal fusions are part of this gauntlet event type thing. So they spawn in randomly. You get temporal fusions, you get temporal deviations, but you don't know how many of these you're going to get. So you can end this area with a ton of count or no count. So it's a little weird. So just keep that in mind. Count is going to be a bit different in this area. And in fact, I think I unclicked the one there. Now we're at 100%. So keep that in mind. Count here is going to be a little bit variable, but you can always come back here and hit things and get more count, really. Moving through to Morchi, again, another area you've noticed here that I have not pulled these mobs. If you do have to pull one of these sets of mobs, I would recommend pulling this first one before Morchi. Again, notice it's going to give you a decent chunk of extra count, and there's no real other place for you to avoid count, so that's kind of why I'm choosing to try and skip these mobs. Notably, you can avoid it completely if you have a Priest for Mind Soothe, if you have Shroud, or again, that kind of jumping, gliding tech that I was talking about before, if you have enough Evokers in your group or something or personal stealths in your group, or Invis Pots. If you only have access to one of those things, always skip the second one. kill the first one, skip the second one. Keep that in mind. Obviously, if you can skip both, it's ideal, but this gets a little bit more weird. So I kind of expect you to have to kill one of these. This first one, I didn't check it because there's really nothing else to unclick in this entire dungeon. You're kind of just pulling as little trash as possible already, and we're already going to be at 106% count. So kind of weird, but it is what it is. Morchi, then this second guy. Again, skip it if you can. If not, I guess you're going to 111% count, but, you know, it is what it is, I guess. And then you're going all the way across this room, running forever, across this platform. These guys patrol in and out of this platform, so you can run right through, usually when they're on a patrol away from the platform itself. Do the mobs here, little gauntlet area thing, kill the boss, and then you move back through this area, again, watching these mobs when they spawn. Maybe someone will butt pull them, who knows, so keep an eye out. Back through this area towards the last boss area where you have to kill this 3-pack to open the wall up. So again, mandatory trash pack. And then you go to the last boss. Notably, this trash pack is scary as hell. On a fortified week, you will probably want to bloodlust that with CDs because this is just super, super dangerous. So keep that in mind because there's a dragon that deals AoE damage and 2 of these marauders that also deal AoE damage. So very, very scary. Keep that in mind. But there we have it, guys. That is routes, my simple, easy to execute routes, pug friendly for all 8 Mythic Plus dungeons in Season 3. Hopefully this does help you guys out, and if it does, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it, including plus 20 Keystone Master and Keystone Hero kind of walkthroughs, normal, heroic, and mythic boss guides, and much more. As always, thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. It really does mean a lot. Otherwise, thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.